PHNX Sun Devil Show. I am Anthony Totri. We've got the one, the only Ralph Amsden himself joining us today. We've got DJ Danielle making all the magic happen behind the mat. Guys, same as usual, unless you're new here. This will be the first time for you. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and leave a 5-star review. Let us know what you like about this podcast, or maybe a way that we could improve the Sun Devil magic. But Ralph, obviously, everybody, not just in Tempe, but all around Big 12 country, talking about a first look at the 2024 Big 12 schedule. We're going to get into that in just a little bit. But what I want to hit on first, you've got some tweets. I've seen some other local media have some tweets surrounding the whole Brock Purdy recruiting situation or lack thereof at Arizona State. I think a lot of people locally kind of understood when Herm Edwards was in place here that he didn't really recruit Brock Purdy all that hard. But from what I saw, apparently on ESPN earlier, he had talked about he always knew Brock Purdy was going to be this guy competing in the Super Bowl at the highest level. I'm just curious what you thought about that whole situation.
It was fascinating because, first of all, nobody was really expecting Herm Edwards to recruit Brock Purdy in the first place. Like, no, there was no offense. Nothing bad had happened. Only bringing it up and not necessarily telling the truth about it would cause anybody to criticize you for not getting something done, I don't know, 45 days into the job. Like, imagine 10 years from now, nobody expected Kenny Dillingham to land 5-star Deuce Robinson out of Pinnacle. He gave it a go. But imagine like 10 years from now, Kenny Dillingham is like, yeah, no, actually he committed to us. Like, what? I remember that very much not happening. I remember him scoring touchdowns at USC. And this is one where I was still on the ASU beat, like as a job, and was there in the room on the spring signing day and had conversations with ASU staff members about the public criticism, whether it was from AZ Central, whether it was from my friends at Sports 360 AZ, about not recruiting Brock Purdy. I talked to a bunch of coaches about it. I've stayed in contact with those coaches as Brock Purdy started 4 years at Iowa State, got drafted as Mr. Irrelevant, and has spent 2 years going, 22-5 or whatever with the San Francisco 49ers. It's not ever something that I've even had the ability to forget because it's been talked about constantly over the last 6 years. What did Herm do? What didn't Herm do? And again, I want to reiterate, I was there for this. And so to hear Herm saying, like, I knew he was going to be that dude and I recruited him out of high school and then he went to Iowa, that's 0 for 3, buddy. That's 0 for 3. I mean, we can talk about what actually happened, and it's not anything any Arizona State fan should be ashamed of. They shouldn't really feel like we missed out on anything. We had Manny Wilkins as a senior in Herm Edwards' first year, and he played the majority of that season. He was beat up a little bit, but he showed a lot of heart. He played that full season. And then we brought in, Joey Yellen, Ethan Long, Jaden Daniels. There's 3 quarterbacks. I think a 4th one that started for Baylor this last year. So there was a lot of quarterback recruiting that happened in the class of 2019. But the class of 2018, I've seen people say we already had Joey Yellen and Jaden Daniels in the building. Why would we recruit Brock Purdy? No, this is the year before. And 1 month into Herm getting on the job, there's a lot of public pressure to recruit Brock Purdy. He gets together with Al Luganbill, who I don't think was officially on staff at that time, but was in charge of really building up what ASU's roster was going to look like, because Herm had been out of college football for 30 years.
Yeah.
And they look at his film and they're like, not for us. Walk on, maybe. He didn't have any Power 5 stuff yet, so let's go offer him a walk-on. He was not the one to be delivering that offer, by the way. That was Donnie Yantis, the recruiting coordinator at the time, tight ends coach. And then Brock Purdy blows up. He's the last great available quarterback. Everybody got to see his film. And one of the reasons he wasn't recruited, got to be very, very honest, about 6 foot. He could play himself in a movie about his high school journey right now. He looks that young, but he's a bad, bad man on the field. Always has been. But for anybody who knows anything about recruiting, if you miss the first 4 games of your junior year, you're probably not going to get a lot of attention because that's what people go off of. And he had mono or something, and he missed those games. And so he tore it up after that. Everybody knew that he was a star. Hode Rubino at Devil's Digest, I think he had a kid at Perry. He was tweeting about him all the time. I was tweeting about him all the time. I used to just post at University of Wyoming, like, offer Brock Purdy, because I knew Arizona State wasn't interested. Knew Todd Graham didn't care. And so Herm thought he was a walk-on. All of a sudden, Alabama, Texas A&M, UCF, Boise State, Iowa State, Kansas, everybody's fighting over him. He's trying to fit in his 5 official visits. And Herm, without seeing any more film, without a single other thing happening to change his mind, bows to public pressure. And he goes to Donnie Yantis and he says, I want you to go to this kid and I want you to say, we will offer you, but only if you say yes. Which is corny. Like, it's because the only reason that you do that is you want to create some pressure. You also want to let them know, like, you're not going to be embarrassed. I'm not going to put myself out on a limb and look bad because you said no to me.
Yeah.
So it's manipulative. It's stupid. It happens in recruiting all the time. But Herm didn't make that call.
Yeah.
He wasn't on. He's not the one who did that. Someone else did. And they called and said, if we offer you, will you say yes? And Brock Purdy said, no, thank you. And that's the end of the story. And I get that we were raised by a generation of men who thought that there was no problem whatsoever with saying, I caught a 12-inch fish when it was a 10-inch fish.
Yeah.
But, like, lying about going fishing is wild as hell. This man is wild. He is a wild man. And I knew he'd be out making the rounds lying about it, and he proved me right. He did it.
It does blow my mind. It blows my mind. And just, there's an alternate universe out there where Brock Purdy is an Arizona State Sun Devil, does what he does, and now we're talking about a Super Bowl featuring an Arizona State quarterback throwing touchdown passes to an Arizona State wide receiver, which it's just a storybook type of journey that, again, didn't take place in this reality, but maybe there's some other situation out there.
What kills me about this is there was a 6-foot Arizona State quarterback who ran a 4.4 40 that could have done some of these things, and no one took a chance on him, and that's Taylor Kelly.
Yeah.
Like, I look at Taylor Kelly and Brock Purdy, and they are very similar in what they do, and it just goes to show you that, like, people have to, if somebody has it, you got to give them a shot.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, whatever physical limitations there might be, if somebody is a natural leader, if they can grasp your playbook and they can improvise, put them in a situation where you'll find out whether or not they have it or not. They put Brock Purdy in this situation, and they are finding out. But we don't get to claim any credit, especially Herm doesn't get to claim any credit for knowing that he was going to be this great player when he took one look at his film and he said, that's not worth a scholarship, and only presented the idea of a scholarship under public pressure. Like, there's nothing honorable. There's no foresight here. Herm Edwards forgotten more football than I'll ever know, but he definitely forgot something here.
Yeah, no, most definitely, man. Look, Herm Edwards, a thing of the past for Arizona State fans, but seemingly he comes up time and again here in 2024. But I do want to go ahead, get to the Arizona State schedule. We'll talk about the first 4 games, and then we'll continue moving on. Obviously, you've got Wyoming, Mississippi State, and then you're on the road at Texas Tech, and then at Texas State, then at Texas Tech. We knew what those first 3 games were going to be, but they open up Big 12 conference play, which still sounds weird to say, at Texas Tech against former Arizona State tight end Jalin Conyers, who was actually just calling me just a second ago as you were giving your Brock Purdy take. So we'll see if maybe we can get him on to see what he has to say about that matchup. I'm just curious your opinion on these first 4 games. I know there's a lot of people that I think are maybe sleeping on Wyoming, maybe think that Mississippi State should be an easier game than it will be. But in reality, those first 4 games, while they might be easier in comparison to the rest of the schedule, it still feels like you shouldn't be sleeping on what ASU has to do through those first 4 games.
Yeah. So let's get into Wyoming. From Wyoming, mom went to Wyoming, uncles went to Wyoming. I got a little student ID posted up there above my head of when I was at University of Wyoming in overalls and diapers, right? I run deep with this school. I will tell you this. They're not great on the road. They're tough as hell, not great on the road. Craig Bohl has retired. Jay Sawvell steps in. This is not a pretty offense. They don't play well on the road. You should expect an Arizona State win. You should expect it to be multiple scores. So that's all I'm going to say about that. I'm going to be in the stands. I'm going to have indigestion. I'm not going to be feeling good about that situation. And they also have a quarterback from Mesa. So it'll be interesting to see if Red Mountain and that community shows out. If he ends up getting the starting job. They run the ball well. They shorten games, but they're not super athletic on defense, but they do play the same defensive style that Brian Ward brings to Arizona State. In fact, Brian Ward is part of that coaching tree, the North Dakota State coaching tree. So Mississippi State, they were atrocious last year.
Yeah.
They tried to run a run first offense with a air raid personnel after the passing of Mike Leach. That team is going to look so incredibly different even 6 months from now that it's hard to forecast what that will be. I would hope that home field advantage is the one thing that Arizona State can look forward to. Texas State does not currently have a quarterback.
Yeah.
They'll get one, but they lost their offensive coordinator to San Jose State, and JT Finley transferred out. Jaden DeLora transferred in, and then who knows?
Yeah, that whole situation is super, super strange because Finley transferred out after DeLora got there, correct? And then DeLora, a week later, was almost like pushed out of the program, it felt like.
Right. Public pressure from something that happened at St. Louis High School in Hawaii when he was a junior. Civil litigation has continued on from that, but St. Louis High School didn't have an issue. Washington State didn't have an issue even through his DUI, which he was expunged, I believe. And University of Arizona didn't seem to have an issue. Texas State brought him in, vouched for him, lost their OC, then 5 days later said, no more. So I don't think they're in a really, really great situation. Texas Tech, I think they could go 3-0 into that Texas Tech game. I'm going to be honest, Joey McGuire is awesome. He's a heck of a recruiter. They were very, very beat up last year. It'll be interesting to see what they look like moving forward because they had Tyler Shuck at quarterback. He's at Louisville now, and he had missed parts of 2 seasons with injury. They have Jalin Conyers now. I'm a little bit afraid of him, of course. It'll be good to see him, but if you get a chance to go out to a road game in Lubbock, man, it's awesome. It'll be your real first taste of the Big 12. It had a chance to go out there and cover a game when Texas Tech was running their offense through Kiki Cote. They beat ASU, but the environment was electric. It's like a 5 hours?
Yeah, I believe 5 or 6.
Well, I think it's 11 total, but I think it's like travel time. If you're flying, you get there really, really quick.
Yeah.
You could be in your home, and 5 hours later you could be in your hotel in Lubbock. So highly recommend making that trip or get some people together, do the drive. I think you can see Billy the Kid's grave on the way there. That's a fun little stop off. But I mean, to me, it seems like 3 wins and a toss up. But yeah, that's an electric way to start your time in the Big 12 being at Lubbock.
Yeah, Donald also bringing up in the chat, they got themselves Texas Tech, a 5-star wide receiver as well. You bring up Jalin Conyers, and it's kind of interesting. We've had conversations on this show before with a multitude of different people just in terms of when Arizona State was going to go to the Big 12 or if maybe some of the Big 12 schools were going to come over to the Pac-12, that whole situation. It did always feel like Texas Tech would have been a nice school to grab from the Big 12 to the Pac-12 because it just felt like Texas Tech fit that vibe. They were never really a powerhouse, but you could always kind of see them making some noise. And you bring up an interesting point just about Lubbock and what I think ASU fans are in for, not just to start the schedule, but as you really move along through conference play, is I think you're going to find out that this isn't the LA schools that you're going to. This isn't, some of the older days with Colorado. Like, you are going to have sellout crowds week in, week out on the road. You are going to be playing in some really, really tough environments that I'm not sure maybe the fan base has fully grasped quite yet, or maybe they just haven't been accustomed to, because we haven't seen sellout crowds game in, game out at ASU in such a long time. Obviously, Kenny Dillingham and company making some headway there with that this past season. But I agree with you. I think Arizona State, in reality, should be able to start the season 3-0. Again, depending on injuries, depending on who's starting at quarterback, there's still so many different things to be decided. I think opening conference play against Texas Tech is going to be a real interesting spot in the season for Arizona State. Kenny Dillingham, you're going to get a really good idea, I think, after that game of what maybe this Sun Devil season could look like and should look like. And I think another really, really fortunate part about this schedule is Arizona State blessed with 2 bye weeks, thankfully, because of the calendar. Obviously, so many injury issues last season, so many guys just getting beat up throughout the season, and now you've got 2 bye weeks. I believe one of those bye weeks does come after that Texas Tech game, the very first conference game of the season. How do you feel about ASU having 2 bye weeks in their first Big 12 schedule?
I love it because it gives you time to prepare for Kansas and Utah, and that's really the meat of your schedule, because there's so much hype around this Kansas team. Lance Leopold, Jalen Daniels, everything that they've been able to build. They've recruited the state of Arizona very heavily, so they're going to be bringing probably 5-6 players on their roster back home. And they've really taken advantage of the new Big 12 landscape. And then you got Utah. And I'm hoping that game, it says Friday or Saturday. I'm hoping it's on Saturday at the hottest point of the day. Melt the Utes, because they have long struggled in Mountain America, Sun Devil Stadium. Mm-hmm. And so I think having 2 weeks off before getting into what might be one of the most physical parts of your schedule, having to chase around a super athlete at quarterback and then having to take on Cam Rising and that Kyle Whittingham coach team. Like you're going to need some energy for that. And so I think the bye week comes at a really, really awesome time. I've never seen anything like this before, where every single team has multiple bye weeks. It's very cool, and it gives you a couple of breaks in the season just to kind of gather yourself, judge who you've been, who you want to be, and what it's going to take to get there.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. A great opportunity for this team and this coaching staff to evaluate after the first 4 weeks of the season what's working, what's not working. Not to say that they don't do this on a daily basis, a weekly basis, but to be able to have that entire week off to be able to really game plan for what's ahead, because you do bring up those opponents in Kansas and Utah. That was the first thing that I really noticed when you hit the schedule, is that's going to be back-to-back pretty early on in conference play, some really important and some really difficult games with some dominant teams and some crazy athletes, to be completely honest with you. So it will be a unique situation.
And I'm kind of excited to see, because that Kansas is going to be the first Big 12 home game, kind of excited to see what that looks like.
Yeah.
Because, we know that Arizona is a transient state. It's a transplant state. And we've seen what it looks like to have Pac-12 fans, buy up a third of the seats in the stadium. But if you've been around Arizona for any length of time, that there are just as many people from Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas as there are from parts of California, parts of Washington. And so it'll be really, really interesting. And I'll also say this, because you brought up that it's going to be a different experience. And I think for the casual or semi-invested Arizona State fan, I think you're right. But I think for the travelers, for the people that are watching on this stream right now, it's going to be a treat. Like, they've experienced Lubbock on the road. They've experienced Stillwater on the road. And everyone I've talked to loved it. Mm-hmm. They absolutely loved it, in contrast to some of the experiences that they've had on the road in Pac-12 play. And so I think for the diehards, this is going to be like candy. Like, this is really going to stimulate them, because they're welcoming to the people that come to their to their town. For the most part, if you don't piss them off, they're not going to try to piss you off. Like they love the economic stimulus. They love showing you the city that they're proud of. And I hope that Arizona State in turn does that with
Yeah.
everybody except for the people from Salt Lake.
I think that's something that it always felt, at least for me, that the Pac-12 was missing, at least recently, right? Was those diehard fan bases, and you started to see it kind of get more in tune as teams started to grow, as coaching staff started to change. But for a long time, it was just kind of always viewed, in my opinion, as, oh, this is Pac-12 football. Whatever you're getting, on the field, the fan base won't show up. There's always so much to do. You got that with ASU. You got that from time to time with the Wildcats, but I would say their fan base does show up for the most part. And then you look at specifically the LA schools. The LA schools were abysmal. I felt like it was an every week tradition that you would see an image on social media of just like an empty Rose Bowl. And you're just like, what's going on? Like, why aren't they packing this stadium game in, game out to try and help their team? Or, it's Saturday, it's college football. This is what it's all about. And going to Arizona State versus my first job, then going to Notre Dame and traveling around and seeing those fan bases, it is Saturday is you wait all week for that. You wait all week to pack a stadium, to tailgate, to support your team, and to lose your voice. You shouldn't have a voice going into Sunday, and that wasn't always, while I was at Arizona State, the tradition, and I think Kenny Dillingham and company is trying to bring that back, and I think, honestly, going to the Big 12 is going to help make that change.
For sure. A lot of Big 12 fans are out to make a memory. And it's going to be cool. I think it's really going to be cool to be a part of that. I'm grieving the Pac-12 as we speak, grieving the loss of the Pac-12. Just shut down my Pac-12 podcast after 5 years. Like it's tough. But at the same time, I think that if you bleed maroon and gold, see a doctor. But if you bleed maroon and gold figuratively, like this is going to be an opportunity for you to spend time around people who are really proud of their town and their school, and they want to share it with you. Nobody in LA is trying to share anything with you. Nobody in the Bay is trying to share anything with you, even though I love Cal fans. Like that, it's there's only a couple of cities, and I know you got your issues with Boulder, but Boulder is one of those where like you're not just going to experience the game, you're going to experience the culture of Boulder. And I think Tempe can be that, even though Tempe is always changing. I think Tucson's going to fit in really, really well in the Big 12. And as much as they hate that this is true, Salt Lake's going to fit in as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we're going to continue with the schedule here in a second. I do want to get to Short Bus's super chat. 199. He's got a ridiculous question, Ralph, but here we are. Who runs a faster 40, you or me? I feel like it's you. I don't do cardio, man. I don't run at all.
I'm a distance guy, or I was before I discovered Twinkies. So 40, I'm gonna give it to Totri. 4,000, maybe I could.
I will take you. You can take that. You can take the 4,000. I'll take the 40 yards, and then I'll go huff and puff. Maybe I'll stop at Illegal Pete's Tempe location, because I'm not going to make it more than 40 yards from Sun Devil Stadium to Illegal Pete's, guys. It is Taco Tuesday at Illegal Pete's. Go check them out, not just for their amazing food, but they do have some great specials. They've got drinks. The weather's changing. It's beautiful here in the Valley. All those Big 12 fans are going to really enjoy spending some time when they do get to Tempe, guys. But ring in every single week with some amazing weekly deals that they have over at Illegal Pete's. Kick the Monday blues with $3 margaritas all day long, or ease your way back into the week with $2 tacos every single Tuesday. And if you work in healthcare or education, take your team to lunch at Illegal Pete's every Tuesday and enjoy buy one, get one free entrees. And don't forget to unwind after a long day at their happy hour, 3 p.m. through 8 p.m. every day. Illegal Pete's, your go-to spot for burritos, buddies, and beer. And we got Jalin back. Let's see. All right, Jalin, I'm live on the show right now, okay?
Oh, what's up, fans?
What I'm just curious what you think of that, of the first game of the season, man.
Honestly, I'm not even surprised. Like, it's like you just know when because they were talking about the schedule, and I was like, oh yeah. I was like, I wonder where we can play them at, because I knew we were playing them here. But I was like, oh yeah, I'll probably be like midway the season. I don't know, but I'm not surprised, but yeah, it'll be fun. I just talked to Trent and Bryce, Scat, and all them, and it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be cool to see those guys that early in the season. It'll be fun.
Absolutely. You got a score prediction, man?
No comment.
No comment? Okay.
Is that a good choice of words?
Okay. Well, we'll have to make our way to Lubbock, and maybe we could do a remote show with you there.
Oh yeah, you have to. That'll be fun.
Awesome, man. I'll talk to you later, dude.
All right, cool. Have a good one.
See ya. All right, Jalin Conyers' thoughts on Arizona State's meeting with Texas Tech. Look, if you're trying to get tickets to some of these games, go check out Game Time, guys. Personally, I've used Game Time already 3 separate purchases this year for different concert tickets. I was actually having dinner last night with some friends. They brought up maybe going to a Suns game, so we pulled up the Game Time app. Pretty sure you can get Suns Kings tickets for like $13. They have some amazing deals over at Game Time, guys. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download that Game Time app, create an account, and use that code PHNX for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code PHNX for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, so I know we kind of hammered home the first 4 games of the season. Let's go ahead, pull that graphic back up for everybody so they can see what's on deck after that. We touched a little bit on Kansas, Utah, and then you've got some more road games. Arizona State traveling to take on Cincinnati, and then to Stillwater to take on Oklahoma State. Any other thoughts you have on Kansas and Utah before we start diving into Cincinnati and Oklahoma State? Oklahoma State, obviously a team that Arizona State has seen back-to-back seasons, and then kind of interesting with Cincinnati. I don't believe it's the case anymore, but Emory Jones, obviously a former Arizona State quarterback, last season played at Cincinnati.
Yeah, I think my thoughts on the Kansas game are just that if you think that everything they do has to be run through their quarterback, you have to understand that Jalen Daniels actually missed a good portion of last year. They were still fine. They were still ranked. That's going to be one to get up for. Like that's going to be one to pack the stadium out for. I don't think I have to encourage anybody to do that when it comes to Utah. The interesting thing about Utah to me is Dorian Singer, right?
Yeah.
We experienced Dorian Singer as a member of University of Arizona. He was a walk-on there that got put on scholarship, transferred out to USC, found himself in a crowded receivers room, didn't do much, had a couple of special plays he made off the arm of Caleb Williams, but he's looking to resurrect his potential in Salt Lake, where they do everything through the tight end. I watched Solomon Enos play at Utah for 5 years and never had more than like 25 catches in a season. So that one's going to be fascinating to me. Are they going to change the offense in any way, shape, or form? But, Cam Rising back for year 6, coming off, I think, his 3rd major knee injury. He is somebody that ASU recruited. I don't know if people know this, but his older brother, Ty Rising, a Sun Devil. Played on the offensive line, was a JUCO recruit. But it'll be interesting to get one last crack at Utah in the Cam Rising era, assuming he's healthy.
Yeah.
And that defense is tough. That defense is really tough. And but they've struggled in Tempe. And my hope is that the environment is as hostile as possible, and that they continue to struggle in Tempe. And beyond that, that we're getting into the area where I don't know much. You brought up Cincinnati. I know they had Emory. I know that they're having like a resurgence because of the New Heights podcast.
Yeah.
You're seeing photos of Jason and Travis Kelce in Cincy jerseys everywhere. Your boy Brian Kelly used to be there.
Yeah.
Tony Pike, probably the quarterback. For as much credit as I take for being right about Josh Allen and Brock Purdy, I thought Tony Pike was going to be the greatest quarterback ever. 6'6", he never did anything in the NFL. I don't know much about Cincinnati at all. I know that they've been using the portal to try to supplement, and that they had kind of a rude awakening welcome into Power 5 football last year. We got to hope that they don't have their footing all the way yet, and that we're one step ahead of them. But I imagine that game's going to be a tough one for sure.
Yeah, I mean, just starting with Kansas, you bring up Jalen Daniels. This is not somebody, I feel like maybe this is for people that are new, a little bit more new to watching Big 12 football, which I feel like there were a lot of Pac-12 fans last year starting to take a real interest because they knew that it was going to be the last season. Jalen Daniels has been playing college football for some time now, since 2020. And I feel like this coming season is going to be, I don't want to say it's his year, but in reality, it's going to be his year if he's 100% healthy to really put some tape together to eventually move on to the NFL, because I think you've seen flashes that he has that potential. His best season was in 2022, completed 66% of his passes, threw for 2,000 yards, 18 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. We know he is not just a passing quarterback. He is very versatile. So it is going to be interesting to see. I had somebody throw a message up on Twitter saying that Bobby Hurley needs to be on the sidelines for that Kansas game when they come to town. We obviously know how Arizona State takes care of business when it comes to the Jayhawks. But Utah is another interesting one. We know last season, I mean, we did the post-game show together. Like, I think that was the post-game show that we did, and you were bringing up what was it, the daily quotes, or the quotes of the day that you needed because it was just that bad. It was one of the worst games of the season for Arizona State. Part of that because they were just outclassed, outmatched, and they just didn't really have the depth and the star power last season to make it a real competitive game. And we know Kenny has been on record multiple times talking about just how important it is to establish a culture like they have in Utah, like Kyle Whittingham has really tried to build over there. And we've seen it time and again. We'll see, obviously, if Cam Rising is healthy. I think college football fans in general just want to see Cam Rising one last time, because nobody wants to see Cam Rising a 7th year or an 8th year. So just be done. Be done after 6, and we'll call it a career after that. Cincinnati, like you mentioned, they did have a pretty down season last year. Part of that, I feel like, being with Luke Fickell still being gone, and then obviously just it was a rude awakening for the Bearcats to have to play in a conference like the Big 12. But you know, I think ASU did get out. I don't want to say scot-free, but the fact that you don't have to play too late into the season in Cincinnati, I think, is probably a good thing. Can we pull up the graphic just so I've got an idea of when exactly we play? Let's see. Cincinnati, October 19th. So yeah, it shouldn't be snowing. It shouldn't be anything too crazy, knock on wood. So the Sun Devils shouldn't have to worry about all that. But going over to Oklahoma State, you've got that game November 2nd. Arizona State, after the Cincinnati game that we just talked about, has their second bye week of the season. We talked about the importance of that first one, kind of being able to evaluate yourself after not only non-conference play, but that first conference game. Now another opportunity for Arizona State to evaluate itself after 3 games, and realistically, 2 of those 3 probably being the toughest games of the season for Arizona State. I think that bye week might be even more crucial for ASU just from a health standpoint, being able to play that back half of the season.
Man, who would have thought 2 years ago that we would have a back-to-back-to-back with Oklahoma State?
That's crazy. That is crazy.
Times are changing. I also have a question for you, because it hasn't become an issue yet, but I'm assuming that it's going to be a thing. Are we going to have like a certain built-in level of animosity with Cincinnati? Like, they are the Bearcats. They are what University of Arizona thinks
they are.
That they are. Yeah. I just wonder if that makes anybody else tense up a little bit.
I think anytime. How many cats are in this conference? 3? Wildcats,
Maybe.
Bearcats.
Yeah. K-State feels like they're the original for sure.
Yeah. U of A doesn't really know what they are.
Right. And then Cincinnati is like the amalgamation of both.
Yeah.
I suppose. Down with all Wildcats, I guess.
A Pokemon evolution of these schools' mascots. I don't think it'll be an issue. I think when it comes to maybe when that game comes around, there is probably going to be folks on social media, probably some signs in the stands. I don't know if there's ever going to be a real rivalry to it until, you know, these two teams maybe go back and forth a couple seasons. I do think when we go through this schedule, there are some just natural born rivals. Like, I do think Texas Tech will eventually turn into a real hatred for Arizona State, just because I feel like these two teams are so similar. We know the Arizona State-Texas Tech game years and years ago with Pat Mahomes and Caleb Elage trading touchdowns. The year after that, Nick Shimonik led Texas Tech to a win over Arizona State with that aerial attack. So we'll see, obviously. But I don't think there's going to be any real animosity, maybe just faked for social media. Do you think there's going to be?
I don't know, but I'm thinking about what you just brought up. And so if the Bearcats are the son of Kansas State and Arizona, who is mom and who is dad? I guess I just want to know.
Who is
But
mom and who is dad?
You know what I'm kind of glad about being in the Big 12 is that like we're not joining a conference where our colors already exist.
Yeah.
Because I think about Texas Tech and Cincinnati, and I'm like, well, that's the same.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fair. I mean, to
And then
answer
you think about Kansas State and Arizona State, same nickname. That's boring.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I don't have any ill will with Kansas State. I really don't. But to answer your first question of who's mom, who's dad, it really depends. Do you want to call Kansas State daddy or mommy, or do you want to call the Wildcats daddy or mommy? And that's just what it comes down to. I think for some people, it might be easier to just call Kansas State dad, and maybe the Wildcats can be the stepmom or something. I don't know. It is what it
All right.
is.
When the All City Network expands to Cincinnati, well, this will be an interesting question.
That'll be the inaugural show.
Who is daddy? Yes.
Who is daddy? That is awesome. So look, after that bye week for Arizona State, then you've got the Sun Devils taking on Oklahoma State. Like you said, third season in a row. They're at Stillwater. We know what Gundy has done with that program. It feels like he's been there for an eternity. His son was a quarterback there for last season. He was part of that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say a three-headed monster. I'll say a quarterback carousel, because that's what it was. Quarterbacks just constantly coming in, coming out. He transferred to Alabama, did he not?
I think that was a joke.
Oh, was it really?
I think the edit was a joke.
Let's see.
I think he's still in the portal. It might actually be his nephew.
Mm.
Gunnar Gundy. I believe. I mean, as of a month ago, still in the portal, and he's still listed on Twitter as a quarterback at Oklahoma State. But he's got his pinned tweet that he's in the portal, and his last tweet that he has up is that he got an offer from Ohio. I do believe that the quarterback that we faced off against got like a 7th year of eligibility, and they're still going to have Ollie Gordon, who was probably a top 3 running back in the country last year. So it's going to be a tall task. They're obviously incredibly well coached. I thought, Arizona State had every opportunity to win that game last year, and Arizona State wasn't at full strength. So we'll see what happens.
That was really the Oklahoma State game. That came before or after the Fresno State game? That came before, right?
Before, yeah.
Okay, so that fourth quarter is really when the wheels started to come off the whole thing. Right before you got into Fresno State. But yeah, Gunnar Gundy still in the portal. I mean, it's an interesting situation with the quarterbacks for some of these schools. I feel like if you've got a guy with his 7th year, he's going in his 7th season, like he's got to be the favorite, right, to be the starting quarterback moving forward. Regardless, though, I think when you're talking and looking at this Big 12 schedule, where and when is pretty important. Again, Arizona State taking on Oklahoma State on the road. I think that is the biggest part of this matchup.
So I'm going to give you an Alan Bowman fact that is pretty wild. He was coached in college by Cliff Kingsbury.
What?
So, yeah. He's
been playing that long?
Actually, yeah, he was at Texas Tech in 2018 and 2019 and 2020. And then 21 and 22, he was at Michigan. And last year he was at Oklahoma State. He'll be back at Oklahoma State this next year.
That's absurd.
Yeah, so he played for Kingsbury at Texas Tech, and he's still going.
Wow. I mean, look, he's not a quitter. I'll give him that. He just continues to go. A lot of quarterbacks that we're talking about, they're not too young. I know Iowa State's got a pretty young quarterback that they're going to be throwing out there. But for the most part, some of these teams that Arizona State is going to play, you talk about Kansas, you talk about Utah, Oklahoma State. Obviously, we know Arizona will get to at the tail end. They've got some quarterbacks that made some noise last season, so it will be interesting to obviously see Arizona State at Oklahoma State for that third time. Guys, look, we're talking about the 2024 Big 12 schedule for Arizona State. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. If you want to make some money on Big 12 football, again, still feels weird to say, or maybe you don't want to bet on college football. It's too early. I get it. You don't want to pick conference winners. That's understandable. But you could still bet on the NBA. Obviously, the Super Bowl is right around the corner. Heck, you could bet on the Pro Bowl if you want, guys. But whenever you do it on the BetMGM Sportsbook app, guys. Download that BetMGM Sportsbook app on iOS or Android, or visit BetMGM.com. Sign up and deposit at least $5 into your newly created account and place a wager in the amount of at least $5 at standard odds price. And once you've placed a bet, you guys are going to receive $158 in bonus bets regardless of the outcome of your wager. That is free money. Just to recap, sign up for BetMGM and use that bonus code PHNX. Place your first BetMGM Sportsbook wager through BetMGM Sportsbook mobile app for at least $5. You'll receive $158 instantly in additional winnings regardless of your wager's outcome. Check out the show notes for full details. And Allison and Damon talk about the disclaimer.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 New York. Call 1-800-327-5050 Massachusetts. 21 plus to wager. Please gamble responsibly. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP Arizona. 1-800-BETS-OFF Iowa. 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help Michigan. 1-800-981-0023 Puerto Rico in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Visit BetMGM.com for terms. This promotional offer is not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico.
Let's say you win some money on the BetMGM Sportsbook app. Well, where are you going to take it? Where are you going to double it? You're going to do it over at Gila Resorts and Casinos, or maybe you just want to have yourself a little staycation, guys. Nobody does it better. They offer an authentic and immersive experience unlike anybody else in the Valley, with an unprecedented level of entertainment and excitement that quite literally is the best around. They haven't just set a high bar, they have set the highest of bars with their state-of-the-art gaming floor. It has it all with over 800 slot machines, 15 blackjack tables, and live table games, not to mention Arizona's largest casino sportsbook. Head over to Gila River Resorts and Casinos and let them show you what next level is all about. You do you at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. Visit playatgila.com for more details. Ralph, we've gone through, 8 games so far? Where do you feel like the Sun Devils are at after week 8? And I know this is way, way too early predictions. We don't know so much about what's going to be transpiring with this team. We haven't even hit spring ball yet. Still like a month and a half away from that. But after 8 games, do you have any sort of inkling where you feel like Arizona State might be?
Yeah. So my friend Rob Reyes, Jedi ASU on Twitter, fan favorite of everybody's, he likes to assign decimals to the wins and then just kind of take the total, right? So to me, the first 3 games, I feel like they can win. But if you give Mississippi State a 75% chance, you give Texas Tech a half, you give Kansas a half, you give Utah maybe 0.25, and you give Cincinnati a half, then maybe you're looking at like a 5-3 through 8 weeks. And I feel like Arizona State fans at this point would take 5-3 bowl eligibility on the line going into the last 4 games.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you're 5-3 after the Oklahoma State game with UCF, Kansas State, BYU, and then the Territorial Cup, I think you are feeling like already the season was a success. And then you're like, where can we go from here? Right. Then you're like, okay, how far can we push the limits? Because we saw what this team could do off-season wise when they were 3-9. What could this team do if they find a way to go 8-4? Right. Like then you're starting to talk about, okay, this team, this staff, everybody is really elevating this program faster than maybe people thought, because even though we're sitting in year 2, I feel like there's still a good chunk of people that are like, okay, year 3 is when you're going to see the most of this program. Whereas if you're able to get to, like you said, potentially a 5-3 with teams like you lost to Kansas, you lost to Utah, and let's say you lost to, I don't know, Oklahoma State or Mississippi State, one of those teams, I think ASU fans will absolutely take that. You're hopefully feeling healthy after, the 2 bye weeks. You're a win away from bowl eligibility, and I think that would be certainly a solid way to push into the back half of the season, where you've got UCF at home, which I know the Wildcats, they travel to Florida for that game. That's going to be totally weird. But you've got UCF, who, from everything that I've seen, they've had a pretty good offseason in terms of recruiting. Is that do you think that makes a significant difference in this game moving forward? The first meeting between these 2 teams as conference opponents?
Okay, so this is my artificial rival. This is it. This is the one school that I want smoke with more than any of the other schools. I'm all in on Arizona State, University of Central Florida being the rivalry. They're the 2 cities that have the most to do. UCF's best memory in football is going 13-0 with Scott Frost. Our best memory in football is shutting out Scott Frost 19-0. they're in we're the Florida of the Southwest,
Pretty much.
and Florida's East Coast Arizona, right? They've gotten a couple of really good quarterbacks out of the state of Arizona in recruiting. They're very excited about moving. Like, this is a new stage for them.
Yeah.
It would be nice to little brother them as the other greatest city in the Big 12 footprint. And their fans are nuts, and I think their fans are proof of concept for what Arizona State fans could be in this new era. So I have respect for them, but I want to beat them, and I want to beat them every time. So they're going to be a very good team. If you've seen their schedule, it is a murderer's row outside of two non-con games that aren't, I think, Sam Houston, and I think they play like New Hampshire. And then after that, it is hold on tight, baby. Like they got Florida, like the Florida. And then the road games that they have are pretty intense. It's no days off after their first 2 weeks of the season to me.
Yeah. No, you're right. They got New Hampshire, Sam Houston, and then they've got at TCU, their home versus Colorado, at Florida, Cincinnati, at Iowa State versus BYU, at home against Arizona, which they're calling the space game. Interesting. Then they've got Arizona State right after that, at West Virginia. They've got to play in Utah November 29th, and then they're home against Utah, and then the championship game. They got out with that one. They didn't have to play in Utah at the end of
Ending
November.
with Utah is insane, though. Yeah, I don't know. I looked at and that also just goes to show you how strange the college football landscape is. That Utah isn't ending with Colorado or the unholy war, holy war, whatever they call it, but they got to go. They got to go to Orlando, Florida, for a nice little vacation. I don't know. I think UCF is going to have an interesting time getting their footing this year.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be one of those footholds.
No.
And so that game I've circled as being extremely important. On a personal level, I just believe that they could make good rivals. I get that any rivalry at this point is artificial and it has to come out of something. But I look at Tempe and I look at Orlando and I'm like, this is like they're East Coast us.
Yeah. The destination cities in the Big 12 for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
And I think
Disney World, Chuck Box, pretty much the same.
One in the same, 1A, 1B. And we're not even going to say Chuck Box. Chuck Box is not 1B. Okay, let's just get that clear. You bring up the UCF schedule, and the tail end of that is that Utah game. We could be talking about that being a wildly important game for Utah down the stretch when you talk about their place trying to get into that Big 12 championship game, deciding obviously what they are going to be in their first year back to the Big 12. But after UCF, Arizona State at Kansas State, November 16th. Don't anticipate that being the warmest of games. And look, I said earlier that I didn't really have any beef with Kansas State, but now that I think about it, Saul Bookman, he's an Arizona Wildcat, and he's also a big Kansas State guy. So now I do have beef. I do have beef with Kansas State, but that is simply because of GM Saul Bookman. Look, Kansas State, it's been interesting to watch their growth over the last few seasons as a program. I think, again, you put them in the same category as an Oregon State where for a while it was just like, oh, they were another bottom feeder in the conference. And all of a sudden, this is multiple years in a row now where we're seeing Kansas State as an AP top 25 team playing in some good bowl games. And if you're like an Arizona State fan thinking that, oh, we're on the road at Kansas State, it's Kansas State, and you haven't been watching Big 12 football over the last couple of seasons, buckle up, because this is another tough opponent that Arizona State is going to have to face late in the season.
Yeah, and then so this is the other side of it. I artificially like Kansas State. I don't know why. My wife, I think I'm going to go to this game. My wife used to live there. She hasn't been back in 25 years. I think I'll make an interesting trip. I drove through Manhattan for the first time 2 years ago. It is shockingly nice compared to 90% of Kansas. And I've always respected their fans. I've been to every bowl game that they've played in the state of Arizona in my lifetime. My mother-in-law went to school there. Like we got some connections here, but I also like how passionate their fan base is. And I love how pissed off they are that, they lost their quarterback and like, they don't want to play second place to anybody.
Oh yeah.
They hate it, and I'm a big Chris Kleiman fan. Again, anybody who came through that North Dakota State coaching tree, he took over for Craig Bowl, continued to win national championships, and has made a nice run for himself in Manhattan, Kansas. I don't know what they're going to look like as a team, because again, losing your quarterback might kind of be like losing your whole identity. But I think that they're definitely going to be one of the more interesting matchups. And I think that Arizona State fans, based on just a couple of tweets I've sent out, have circled this on their calendar as the one they're thinking about traveling to the most.
Yeah, we had LTC in the chat. He said, still owe them for the 2002 Holiday Bowl. If you're unfamiliar with that one, Kansas State, the 6th-ranked team in the nation at that point, took down Arizona State 34-27 in the Holiday Bowl. Kansas State scoring 20 points in the fourth quarter. Ralph.
Am I remembering this incorrectly? Did their quarterback get arrested after that game?
Let me check.
Eli Roberson?
Let's see.
If I'm making this up, I am so sorry, but I have this like faint memory of Kansas State beating us in the Holiday Bowl and then their quarterback going to jail.
Let's see.
Maybe I made it up as like a revenge fantasy.
You're like, no, he was definitely, let's see. No, I think he didn't get arrested, but there was an issue with Eli Roberson. He didn't end up getting charged. But yeah, there was
he was
an incident.
He was
in Arizona.
Mistook for another man in Arizona. Okay, cool. Apologies.
See,
I see it. East Valley Tribune. I've convoluted multiple years. I just remember being really mad at Kansas State, and then something bad happened to them, and I was in my early 20s, and I was like, "That's what you get."
Oh my goodness! Look, at Kansas State, November 16th, then Arizona State back at home. BYU. Want to talk about it just feels like you talk about the potential rivalries. This feels like it's going to be a rivalry.
The Bourget Bowl. It has the potential to be the Bourget Bowl. Like, Trayson just transferred to BYU. We still got Trent Money. I don't know what the odds are of it happening, but I am all in on the idea of two brothers who were very much overlooked in the recruiting process being able to square off against each other on the highest stage. Even the possibility of it is very, very cool.
It's the heaven and hell game, man. That's what it's going to be called for sure. You got BYU at Arizona State. The signs at Mountain America Stadium, Sun Devil Stadium, I feel like are going to be just they're going to be a lot. They're going to be a lot to handle, I would say, in that game.
I just want here's what I want. And I want this for BYU, because last week they got admonished by Mark Pope and by security and everybody else for wearing shirts that spelled out horns down in the front row against Texas. Against Arizona State, just let the BYU kids be. Let them do what they're going to do. And I say this as a Wyoming fan. These dudes have been getting tortillas thrown at them for 30 years. People harass BYU on every single field that they play. Just give them one night to let loose in Tempe, say what they're going to say, chant what they're going to chant. Everybody be cool. It's just a game. Let them let off some steam. They're buying tickets. And they're going to buy a lot of tickets.
Yeah.
They have quite a stronghold, that fan base does, in the Valley. And I'm at this point, I'm surprised that it's not in the same way that BYU Arizona was a couple years back, like a neutral field Glendale thing. Yeah. Because I bet you anything like that 45,000 tickets isn't going to be enough, because you're going to have a lot of houses divided. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. I'm really excited about it. And for the first time in college football history, this is not a dig. It's the truth. For the first time in college football history, because of the extra COVID eligibility, you actually have a lot of teams out here that are the same age as BYU players. So it'll be a little bit more of an even matchup physically, and I'm excited for that as well.
Look, I think, and this may be going out there too much, me thinking too far ahead. The more times that BYU has to play in Tempe, you might have a BYU to ASU pipeline from the transfer portal, from players hitting Mill, hitting Old Town after the game. So we'll see what transpires. Maybe keep an eye on the transfer portal at the end of the season, just to see, hey, it's late in the season too. like it's the second to last game of the regular season for these schools. So you never know. You might start to see some BYU players transfer.
We got Jacob Conover the one time. That's the number one domino. Let's keep it going.
He was the first one, man. We got Short Bus in the chat with another $1.99 super chat. Thank you for that. Saying at the end, can we get Ralph top 5 hate lists, please? Big 12. Also a $1.99 super chat from Sharon. Thank you, saying happy birthday to Will in the chat. That is awesome. Happy birthday, Will. Yeah, Ralph, we'll get your hate list here in a second, but I imagine one of the schools is going to be the school that we're about to talk about, because you end the season the same way you always do with the Arizona Wildcats, except this time you're on the road. Obviously, this past season was in Tempe. It has been a wild year. January of 24 has been for the Arizona Wildcats. Obviously, up and down, Jedfish, players, your athletic department, blah, 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 blah. But I still feel like this Territorial Cup game, there's going to be a lot on the line for both of these programs. And in reality, it'll be the first time that Brent Brennan looks in the mirror and sees his younger, better version of himself, Kenny Dillingham.
This is tough, and I'm never gonna like align with Arizona State fans on everything when it comes to University of Arizona. But I was a huge Khalil Tate fan in high school and in college. I got made fun of for that all the time. I've always liked Brent Brennan. When we play them, it's very much going to be like the Wesley Snipes with a gun and a tear meme. I hate what we're about to do to you, buddy. But like I do want to whoop Danny Gonzalez's ass.
Yeah.
I really do. Danny, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But
he just needed a job, man. Sometimes he just needed a job.
He just needed a job, but now we got to go out and prove his original sentiment about University of Arizona correctly.
Yeah.
And then maybe, just maybe, there'll be a spot coaching linebackers or something like that for him in Tempe. Best of luck to Coach Gonzalez. But I will say this. That game being on the road after what happened last year it's gonna be nice, because you don't want to just get it back, you want to get it all the way back. And to do something about what happened last year on their home field is going to be the goal for the entire season. And I'm sure that they feel the same way. There's been spy versus spy for as long as there's been college football.
Yeah.
But they're in a situation where I'm glad that they kept a lot of the players that they did, because it's not just, revenge for the laundry at this point.
Mm.
You get to try to stop Noah Fafita and try to stop T-Mac one more time. And I think that's going to be good. There's not going to be any excuses if and when Arizona State does win that game. It's not going to be like, well, we lost Jetfish and Noah's gone and T-Mac's gone. Like that's, they'll be crying hot tears over losing with their best on the field, which is the same thing that I would hope that they hoped for us this upcoming year, that we actually are able to field a roster.
Yeah.
That can compete on the football field with other football teams. And if that ends up being the thing that, because a lot of people are going to pick them to run away with the Big 12, people who aren't on the Utah train, my guess is they're going to go full Arizona. I would hope that we're the ones that make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And I'm really, really looking forward to that get back game for sure.
And I think when you talk about just the Big 12 in general, right, this obviously being the first year that a lot of teams are playing in new conferences, I think there is a level of comfort for ASU fans, and something that they can still look forward to. That obviously one of the greatest rivalries in the history of college sports between Arizona and Arizona State, I think, is going to be huge. And again, like Jedfish gone, Noah Fafita, T-Mac back, obviously Kenny Dillingham and company trying to make some noise this offseason. It really is going to be a much more exciting game, I would say, for Arizona State fans heading into that Territorial Cup than this past one. I do want to get to Hank's Super Chat. This is a funny one. Super Chatting $5. Super Chatting $5 just to make Short Bus look like a Love it.
Oh,
and then
man.
Short Bus right back at him with a $1.99 Super Chat. Just Super Chatting more of Hank's tax dollars. They're just going
Incredible.
back and forth, man. Absolutely love it. Do you want to get to your hate list here?
Sure, I'll give it a shot. I didn't have much time to prepare, but out of respect for Short Bus and the $1.99 super chats, I will say this: if you have not seen Short Bus do stand up, Like he hosts and opens a lot of these shows that happen in the Phoenix area. I've had the pleasure of seeing him multiple times. He didn't even believe me, I think, the first time that I told him that. But it's always fun, man, and I appreciate how passionate of a fan he's been and how much he held it down when we stunk. And so I'm always a big fan of his. And don't let anybody make you look cheap. And but for as far as like the things that I hate, things I hate about the Big 12. Okay, number 5, the conference that we're going to kowtowed to University of Texas and the whole horns down thing and made it a penalty. So screw the Big 12 forever for that. That is the corniest thing of all time.
Truly.
Somebody being bothered does not mean that it's not sportsmanlike. And just because they're your heavy hitter, like you made everybody look bad, you made people not want to take your conference seriously. So that's number 1. Number 2, or that's number 5. Number 4, I would say is UCF. I hate you. I don't know why yet, but I'm going to find reasons. Congratulations on having a space game with Arizona. You're going to look through each other's telescopes. Cool. Let's see. Number 3, West Virginia fans. You guys are a bit too much for me at this point in time. I look forward to getting to know you better and also would prefer if I didn't have to. You're a lot, and I think you know you're a lot. And I live a little bit too close to West Virginia right now to say any more than that.
2 more.
Number 2, I'm going to say also UCF and your undefeated national championship banner. It was very dumb. You didn't win anything.
True.
And you're terrible, and you're always going to be terrible, and we own you. And number 1 is there's a Big 12 school. It might be like one of the southernmost Big 12 schools. And pretty much everything about them is terrible.
Yeah.
And I think you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
So,
that was perfect, too, because Saul Bookman just walked in while you were talking about that. So that is awesome. Guys, we do have one last super chat. Hank out there saying, watch me make it rain like Pac-Man Jones. Hank got the last laugh on the super chats, guys. But that is going to do it for the PHNX Sun Devils show today. Oh, here we go.
can I talk to
Here
my
comes Saul.
I'm not letting you off the hook there, Ralph. First of all, the southernmost, does Houston and
One of-
UCF not exist?
He said one up.
One of the southernmost. Also,
Come on.
I don't want to get in
Also-
this beef with the Houston. They had the hand symbol first.
The what?
They had the forks up
The
first.
forks
They
up.
said so. Now what? Like we're
Houston did?
copy. That's
Yeah.
what they
For
said.
what?
They've got like their own little weird thing to it.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah, it is.
What
weird.
does it
Doesn't
mean?
make-
Like what
Oh,
even?
wait.
What?
Is it an H?
Maybe that's it.
Maybe it's an H. Maybe they thought it was an H.
I
Hey,
don't know.
Should we ask him the Bearcat question?
Oh yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Okay,
I heard
so
I
Ralph can ask it. Ralph prefaced it perfectly.
I heard you have some type of affinity for Kansas State. I think that's very cool. When it comes to Cincinnati and the Bearcats, who is mommy and who is daddy? The Bear Down, the Wildcats, like Arizona, Kansas State.
Arizona's always the daddy.
Arizona's daddy when it
Don't
comes to
ever
Cincinnati.
forget
All
that.
right.
We're at
Somebody
the-
make a graphic with the quote Arizona's daddy when it comes to Cincinnati and just put
all
Saul's
Bookman.
face on it.
Always.
Tweet it out.
We could do it.
Always.
We could do it. Oh my! Short Bus and Hank keep going back and forth. We got a 1999 super chat now. Here's to hoping my kid's smart enough to get a Scully. Okay,
I'm buying Short Bus. The State 48's on sale today, so I can afford it. I'm gonna buy him a shirt today.
There you go. Guys, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button on your way out. If you enjoyed the content, give us a follow at PHNX_Sun Devils. You can follow me at Anthony_Totri. You can follow Ralph at Ralph Amsden, always doing great work as always. And you can follow DJ Danielle at Abrica Danielle on social, guys. But that is going to do it. We will be back at it on Wednesday. In the meantime, go Devils. Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.